I was at home, and my dad and mom said, Monica, my sister, and me to come downstairs, and found out that my parents were getting a divorce.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
and from that day on, I was like, how can my dad cheat on my mom? And I found out that I was gonna have a stepbrother, and I never looked at pornography before I was 12. But then after that, I found out about pornography. Throughout those years, holding me bound was looking at pornography. I tried to use that as my escape.
Welcome to Elohim Podcast with your host, Ezekiel, a podcast about real life issues from a biblical perspective. Welcome to Elohim Podcast, a podcast about real life issues from a biblical perspective. Today we have Ismael Paramo from Way of Life Church. You're a productions overseer at your place where you guys worship. How's it going, man? Thank you so much for coming, for giving me some of your time. I know you're a super busy guy, taking pictures here, taking pictures there, video. You're very creative, and it's just an honor and a pleasure to have you today, man. How's it going?
Going well. Thank you for having me, and just doing well. Just editing videos and just doing it for all His glory. So,
And I know a lot of people know you as, the person that's doing all these cool things behind the scenes and taking photography and all this. And I myself didn't even know this, but you actually went to Bible school, to biblical school, and you have some theology knowledge, and you actually preach yourself. Can you share a little bit about that season in your life? Because you told me, I'm not just a video guy. I'm not just a photographer. I'm much more than that. And people don't even know that side of me.
yeah. No, definitely. I think if we were to go to that, I think we would have to go back a couple of years. So currently right now I'm 20, but if we go back to when I was 12, that's when my whole life changed.
Your whole life changed?
Yeah, I would say for myself, because a little backstory, my family I consider my family a Christian family.
Yeah.
Always going to church. My mom, in our home church at Way of Life, she started this ministry called a Samaritan House, which is giving food to the homeless or to the need in our community. She started that ministry.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and I just every day, I thought, we're a good family. But when I was 12 years old, that one day I was at home, and my dad and my mom said, Monica, my sister, and me to come downstairs, and found out that my parents were getting a divorce.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and from that day on, I was like, how can my dad cheat on my mom? And I found out that I was gonna have a stepbrother a week later. And,
that is tough.
Yeah, so it's just.
What did you do in that moment? Like, okay, you're 12 years old. You grew up in church. You grew up in ministry. Everything is perfect. Everything is fine. You see your parents. Everything's good. And one day, out of the blue, or you woke up that day not knowing what was gonna happen, and they come and they tell you, "Hey, Ismael, however they call you."
Yeah, Ismael. Yeah.
Ismael.
Yeah.
What did you do in that moment? Did you cry? Did you yell? Did you say what? Well, what was that like?
I know for myself, I was just crying. I couldn't say anything really at all. The first things in my mind was like, how can my dad do this? And for myself, I thought we were a great family. I compared myself to other people. I always compared myself back then. I'm like, oh, my family's doing better than that family in the church. And I was like, now, those people I used to compare myself, oh, I'm better than them.
Now they're doing better than you?
Yeah. I was like, now I'm one of them.
Wow.
And from that, what I did right after is I went back upstairs and I just went to go play on my Wii, try to ignore it. But, all that hatred just was there. Hatred to my father. Yeah.
And you said you knew you were going to have a stepbrother. How did that feel? Like knowing that now you were going to have a brother, that your dad got someone else pregnant besides your mom, and now there's a fruit of whatever happened. How did you take that? Did you receive it well? Did you accept him as your brother? Is there a relationship there? How is that like?
I know. So the following week after that, we actually got to meet him, me and my mom and my sister. Really, the only thing we did was just cry. We just cried. There was no words. There was no I hate. I always knew in Bible school.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, it's like, if you look someone with with anger, you commit murder. And for
Wow.
me, I was like, I can't hate on him. He didn't ask. That kid didn't ask for anything, but it was just you could say it was not a consequence, but it was a result from an action.
From an action.
Yeah, and all I could just do was know, I was like, hey, he may not understand how everything came to happen, but whatever happens, I'm gonna love the kid. That's all I knew, really.
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault, and that was kind of made me just cry because like flesh tells me I want to hate this kid, but my heart is saying no, love him. So
And I think it was just the seeds that were planted on you.
yeah, from my parents,
your
they always
parents.
taught me that, and doing I don't know if a lot of churches do this, but Royal Rangers and all that, they have taught me that.
What are Royal Rangers?
Royal Rangers is more of a. I'm trying my best to explain it.
Is it Boy Scout for
It's
Christians?
like the Boy Scout for Christian versions. And it's like they teach you, how to become a man. I had great leaders through that who taught me how to be, teaching boys to be great men of God. So it's just like that.
So right now, you're 20 years old. That happened when you were 12. 8 years have passed. In the moment, you were full of anger and maybe hatred or resentment, maybe not towards the kid or your brother, but maybe towards your father. Have you been able to overcome those emotions?
Yeah, so I was able to overcome those emotions. It was until when now going towards when I was 17, a school of ministry by the name of Ignite School of Ministry came to Arizona. They were starting their summer internship program. They're based off in Florida. They came to Arizona for summer, and turns out they came to our church to promote. And they asked, "Hey, do you want to join the summer?" And I just remember I cannot say no at all. I was
Something was
there was
pushing
something in my heart pushing me to not say
to say no.
no. And I was like, they asked like, "Hey, do you want to join our summer internship?" I was like, "Yes." "Do you want to do this?" "Yes." I'm like in my mind, I'm gonna try and say no,
Yeah.
but fast forward during that summer internship, which I think was the most powerful thing someone could do, even as a young person, is because in that summer internship they take everything away. They
Oh,
take
really?
your phone. Yeah, they take your phone away, any sort of technology. So you can imagine as a
And you being a tech savvy person,
tech savvy person,
no phone, no
no
iPhone,
phone.
no social media, no nothing.
No, yeah, it's that for me it was hard, but I understand why.
So you were at like an actual camp somewhere
Yeah, so
away from home?
we were at SAGU AIC, which is a college not too far from me in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
That's where they hosted their summer internship. But it was during that summer internship where I had an encounter with God, and just an overnatural peace overwhelmed me, and so that hatred that I had towards my father went away.
Wow. And how is it like to encounter that peace, to encounter that joy? Did it happen? Do you think it happened because you were so isolated away from all the distractions, the city, or just people, and it was just you in a, let's say, Christian environment, in a biblical environment, and all you had to do, and the only thing that you could do in that moment was just seek God and maybe reflect on the things? Because I feel sometimes people will go through things in life that has harmed them, that has marked them, that maybe has traumatized them. But we tend to put those things in the back burner of our minds, and we just keep trying to walk in life. But surely it gets to us. And that's why maybe we walk around as those bitter, angry people all the time. And we're not able to forgive. But then if we encounter God and he starts working in our lives, we can make some change. Do you think it was just because of that, or?
I think I heard this once. Sometimes God has to take everything away for you to not lose everything again.
Wow.
So I think for sure that helped because going back to when I was 12, like I said, I think I see a lot of things that are common for me. When there's a lot of pressure, I try to escape somewhere. And when I was 12, like I said, what I did was when my parents told me that they were getting divorced, what I do, I tried to escape somewhere, tried to go play video games. And I never looked at pornography before I was 12. But then after that, I found out about pornography.
Wow.
That, being tech savvy and all that, it comes with benefits, but also comes with a lot of distractions.
Wow.
And I know a thing that was throughout those years holding me bound was looking at pornography. I tried to use that as my escape.
Mm.
So that also had a play on what, what was holding me back too. But even in that summer internship, it felt free because, what I tried to do to escape, I didn't have.
Yeah.
And what that led me to was only finding the only person I could rely on.
There's a lot of young men, not even just in the world, but even in church, that struggle with pornography. Even women. There was a study that I heard a preacher say once, and I don't have the reference, but he said in this preaching that 9 out of 10 men in the church struggle with pornography, and 6 out of 10 women in the church struggle with pornography. And that's like insane for me to hear because it's church people. But we forget that church is filled with imperfect people trying to change their life, trying to better themselves. And, in that moment, you're finding an escape, you're finding a coping skill, and the devil is going to try to present anything that he can to try to destroy you even more, distract you, like you said. There comes with a lot of distractions. So you right there struggling with pornography, finding an escape, going into that camp, encountering God, you were able to be free from pornography, the addiction. You were able to forgive your father. What happened? How was that like?
Now with all that, it brings a new perspective to how I see, my father. Even though you could say he was not perfect, um, it brings a new perspective on how to approach my father and really try to value what he has done for my life and for my brother's life. Even though we don't live in the same household, it shows me, how to see unconditional love, and even myself too. Even though I hated my father,
Yeah.
I hated myself too at the same time because I was like, I would do this sin, and I was like, how can a God, love me so much
Yeah.
who has committed all this stuff? But it kind of showed me a little bit more about God, and including for my brother, because turns out, if I can't imagine, if I did hate my brother right now, he's currently going through testing of getting seeing if he has ADD or maybe autism.
Wow.
Yeah, and then for me, I was like, imagine if I hated him.
Yeah.
How can you hate someone like that who is going through that?
I mean, working in the mental health field, with autism, there's a lot of, symptoms that come with it, delay and learning and speech. You're not very communicative. You lack social skills, and it's difficult. They have a lot of barriers they have to overcome and things like that. They have sensory problems too with touch and feel. They like certain textures, or they're very picky with their food because they're more sensitive to certain things. And it is a difficult thing for the parents as well when working with a child that has ADD or autism and stuff like that. So I know the struggle is real. But what is crazy, man, is like you're sharing that. When I was 20 years old, my mom called for me, my sister, and everybody to have a meeting. And I was like, this is weird. We're not the family type that has family meetings. I'm like, what's going on? What the heck? And we were sitting all down at my uncle's house, and it was weird for me. Like, at my uncle's house, why here? I had no idea what was going to happen. We were sitting down. My younger sister was there, my older sister. And then my mom, looking very serious, very emotional. And I was like, I automatically knew something was wrong. There was like a gut feeling in my stomach. I was like, what the heck? And yeah, she said that me and your dad are getting divorced. Your dad was unfaithful as well. Like your story. And my sister, my younger sister, gets up, runs crying through the front door. And my other sister went after her. Me, I just stayed there sitting down. I didn't know how to like process it. I didn't know how to like react. I am the type of person that if you tell me someone passed away or something happens, I won't cry in that moment. I won't be like, what? I kind of like think about it. And then maybe a couple days later, a week, it'll hit me. But it'll hit me like hard. So, I was just sitting there and like, what is going on? And on the way back to my house, I put worship music and I just started like crying, like, what the heck? how can this happen? You know, my parents been married my whole life. My mom almost basically gave birth to me at church. I've seen my dad preach. I've seen my dad be a leader. We'd go to Mexico on mission trips, helping, less fortunate, the less fortunate in Mexico. How can this have happened? But no, to the glory of God, man, in 2020, that my parents got remarried. And the only way that could have happened was through a lot of forgiving and a lot of love, supernaturally. I know this is not going to happen this is something very rare. It doesn't really happen, and it doesn't have to happen because it's only like certain circumstances that God allows that to happen. But no, man, I had to really forgive from my heart because I was really upset. I was working at a call center at the time, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
I would get calls and I just couldn't function. I remember I just hanged up after, or I think I even hanged up on the customer, went to the bathroom, washed my face, and left for the day, and I just quit. And there was a moment where I was about to make the decision of, because I was already 20 years old. I was no child. I could make my own decisions. I drove. I had a car. So I had all these capabilities. I could have made that decision of, you know what, forget God, forget everybody. Because my dad almost went to jail because of some other stuff too. It was a hard thing in our family. And the perspective I had on my father went from up here, from Mount Everest to like the deepest of the ocean. Like my admiration to him just depleted tremendously. And I was just like, I have an excuse to do whatever I want now. What are they going to tell me? What is he going to tell me? And then my mom left to Mexico, because she just went over there and, started fresh over there. She's a woman of God, powerfully. God uses her tremendously. It's just funny. Like, I never knew this about you. You didn't know this about me. But no, in that moment, my mom was in Mexico. My dad I didn't want nothing to do with him. And I remember that day after work when I quit, I was like, today I'm going to go to a party. I'm going to drink.
Well.
I'm going to smoke. I'm going to mess with some girl. Whoever is down, I'm down with. And, I went home with those intentions deeply rooted in my heart. And for some reason, I went to church that day.
Well.
I don't know how, why. I went to church. And the next couple of weeks, God opens the doors, and I preached for the first time.
Wow.
The sad part about it is that my mom wasn't there to watch or to see me or to hear me preach for the first time. And Facebook Live wasn't that popping back in 2016. But she wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. My sister was. But since then, dude, it's more frequent now where I preach here and there, but there I started preaching here once in a while, here and there, and it just kept going. And God made me very busy. I was playing in a worship team with the other young men and youth, very talented musicians. Maybe one day you'll meet them. Mm-hmm. Amazing musicians, and we were playing at different events, different youth, and all this. I was the least talented out of all of them, but I just had a natural talent to lead and to be a leader. But no, he kept me very busy, and I started like surrendering my life to God. Like you said, what did he say? I really liked it. God has to take everything away from you.
Yeah, sometimes God has to take everything away from you so you don't have to lose everything again.
And I hit rock bottom, man, but I think that God allowed that to happen so I could stop playing church. I was playing church a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
And so now, fast forward, you went to ministry school, you're doing a lot of things. Can you tell us about that, all the things that you're involved right now?
Yeah. Where do I get started, man? So there's a lot of things I am involved. For example, for my church, like I said, I Way of Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona, 15th Avenue and South. I had to do the plug, but as a media overseer, it's more than just a media overseer or production overseer. It's more as well as how's our worship team gonna do this?
Yeah.
How's the audio and visual gonna look like? It's more about connecting our sometimes our pastor wants to know, hey, can we have this done? So I try to connect that bridge there. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm doing for something for my business, which is SME. I'd like to say I am not the CEO of SME.
You're the founder.
Yeah, it's a little bit about me. It's like I don't try to say I'm the founder of that. I guess it's something personal. Me with the Lord is I say God is CEO. I don't know if you've ever heard about the movement before. It's a movement called God is CEO, and I am the COO, Chief Operating Officer, because God is, He's the one. I'm a firm believer that He gives the idea. He gives us the idea, and we had to put in the work. I always heard this from one of my leaders: nothing is new under the sun.
Yeah.
And I believe that SME wasn't something new. I'm not. Yeah, I'm definitely not the only business to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I'm a way, not the way, but I'm a way. So
I like that.
so I like, for example, while I'm not doing that, I'm whether working for another church, whether it's doing audio installs or helping a church start live streaming, or whether it be updating their sound, or how can they do this? How can they do that?
You're bringing people's visions to life.
Yeah, bringing the pastor's vision to life. Because I know, for example, one big one that really impacted me, and which was my first one too, was I went to a church in Tucson, and all they were asking was, we have these two big 70-inch screen TVs installed. This pastor asked me, how can we put our presentation on there? And
Something so simple for
something
you.
so simple for me.
I still have that
Yeah.
question. I'm just kidding.
But I understand there's many churches who are just like that, and it's funny because that kind of brought me back to when I was in the school of ministry. We went to a church. We would also go to churches, and I got that dream and that idea of helping churches just like that, who were struggling to do just simple slides. I went to one church with his name. It's funny too because both of those pastors, the where I got the dream from,
Yeah.
his name was Pastor Manny. Where the first church I helped with officially as my business is also called Pastor Manny. So it's funny how
They be following you around, those Mannies.
yeah, they're two completely different people, but
There's many Mannies.
yeah, and the whole goal is to help churches, and that goes back with my testimony. Obviously, I would see stuff I wouldn't have to see. So something that I try to do or try to combat is create stuff that we should see, like the gospel. Instead of, I know a lot of people can't hear, so what you try to do is to help visually. So if that church needed help visually, and that was one of the visions of the pastor. He wants to do visual stuff.
Yeah.
And when I helped him out,
That's awesome.
It was just one simple thing. He said Best Buy told me to buy this, buy that, buy that. I was like, Pastor,
They're lying
they're
to you.
lying to you.
He's trying to get commission.
I told him, go return this stuff. All you need is, I was like, I'm gonna do the simplest possible. All you need is just 3 adapters, so whenever someone else could come in, they could plug in their own stuff as well, and that it worked. He sent me a video a week later. I was reasonable. I was like, I don't even have to install it. You could install it yourself, because obviously I want him to learn as well. And he did it by himself, and he sent me a video. And he's like, Mano Ismael, thank you so much for your work. And
Varón de Dios, gracias por la revelación. Man of God, thank you for the revelation.
kind of exactly like that. But it's those small things that count for, that makes so much of a difference. It could be, for me, it's like those small things, like, because his eyes opened up to so many more things.
Yeah.
Because they had a projector up there, but they turned to TVs. And I was like, hey, I told him as well when I went to the church, I'm like, you could use that projector for, have a movie night with the youth. And 3 weeks later, I see that same projector being used for the kids' room, for movies, for the youth. So it's like small stuff that, that we don't think counts. Like I didn't think that would actually happen, but it's like that small stuff that really counted to help him out. So while I'm not doing media production overseer or production overseer at Way of Life, I'm doing this for my business, or whether we also do video editing. Because I say we because it's not just me. I have other people involved who I contract. One of or you could say our mission for SME is helping the church.
Helping the church.
But helping the church, we see in the Bible is the church is not just a group. It's you. The church is us.
The
So,
members,
yeah, helping
the body.
yeah, helping the body. So whether it's a church or individual, it's helping as many people as we can for the glory of God.
And you've done great, phenomenal work with photography, moments you've captured. You've done phenomenal work with videos, being creative and, innovative and giving the best that you can to people. It says everything that you do, do it unto the Lord. And I think that you've really lived that motto. You were telling me that you typically on average take like 5,000 to 6,000 pictures at an event, and then from there you go one by one and you try to see, if I was the leader or if I was the one getting married, this is what I would like to see, this is what I would like to have, and then you go from there. And I think you go above and beyond, and I know that everything that you do, you need to do it to the best of your ability with passion. If not,
Oh yeah.
just find something that you're passionate about, because then it's going to be like a burden for you. I know that even though I'm passionate about preaching and stuff, it's not always going to be easy. But since I love it, even in those difficult moments, I'm still willing to be like, you know what, God, I'm still here. Call me. I'm ready. I'm going to give it my best. Even if there's 10 people in the church or 100 people or 300 people, give it 100%. You're starting out taking pictures at your church. Maybe there's not a whole lot to capture. Maybe there's not a whole lot to work with, but do it to the best of your abilities. How has God opened doors in your life? Like, how did you start going from this event to this event, being called to do this, called that? What was your first camera that you, man, I have so many questions. I'm going to pause it.
I bet. No, I think it's to answer the question how I got started what I'm doing now as a 20-year-old. I've gotten to travel across the country to almost it's funny. I've been all across United States except for the middle part.
You've been all around the crust.
Yeah, I did it like a little U. And Alaska is the only state I haven't been to. But really what helped a lot was, that school of ministry. I give a lot of credit to them because that's where, I got taught what I know now.
Yeah.
Because they also needed the help for a media manager. So they obviously that was a nice opportunity for me. You were to see the stuff I created back then. I was still learning the ropes. Like I was not good at graphics, but now I could say I'm adequate pretty well. But I don't consider my best. But I learned. That's where I learned. All right, this is the kind of photos to take at altar call. This is like. And what was great about that school of ministry is that I had leaders to keep me accountable when I was being prideful, not
being teachable and humble.
and all those things. So that's where opportunity came like that, because we were going to churches in Arizona, Florida, California. So obviously with all those connections come, opportunities.
Wow.
So everything I learned you could say that was my training field from there. So right when I finished, I knew I had an idea what I had to do. So when I did it, I already know, I know these people here, know people over there. And yeah, it was really it. So that was a training field of me learning how to take photos at altar call, how to post on social media, what grabs people attention, what not to post, what should I post on social media, how should I be posting it. And there's like social media.
When does a seminar start? When does the Zoom class begin for these tips that what we should post and what we shouldn't post?
Hopefully, this year. I know that's
Did I just spark an idea?
That's been an idea in my life. I've done youth and young adult seminar kind of ish, where it's social media workshops. Like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
and so one of my most favorite quotes and sayings is that humbleness builds bridges, but pride builds walls. And I think that you build bridges with people, with connections, because you were humble enough to say, okay, oh yeah, that makes sense, or oh, I'm gonna take you up on that suggestion, or I'm just here to learn. Sometimes we're there to teach, we're there to talk, but sometimes we're there to learn, we're there to listen. And I think we need to take advantage of those moments. Like if I'm in a room full of educated or experienced individuals, I'm not going to be the one talking the most in that room. I don't need to show people what I know and try to prove them how smart or wise I am. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to hear people's perspectives and ideas or how they carry themselves and come out of the room knowing more than what I came in with. But sometimes we tend to go in there and we want to show what we know and we talk, and instead of learning and listening, we talk and try to teach, and we leave with the same amount of knowledge
Yeah.
that we came in with. And I think that, you being humble and, also being able to forgive. I think God blessed you for being able to forgive and being willing to let go of the things that you had attached yourself to that were not from God. When we're not able to forgive, it says the Father will not forgive us. If you don't forgive your brother from your heart, not from your lips, from your heart, the Lord will not forgive you. My Heavenly Father will not forgive us. One of the best parables in the Bible that you can learn about forgiveness is Matthew 18, verse 21 to 35, about the unmerciful servant, that he owed so much and the master forgave him, but he wasn't able to forgive his fellow, friend, that he owed him much more less, or much less than he owed. And I think that also blessed your life and blessed your heart. Now, there's people in church that might not be preachers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a preacher. I don't know how to preach. That's not my thing. Or I don't think I'm a pastor. I don't have, that desire, or I'm not looking for that. I can't sing. I don't see myself ever leading worship. I don't play music. I don't even like playing music. I don't see myself as the kids teacher. They find themselves not knowing what to do for God, not knowing what to do for church. What can I do for God?
Yeah. I heard this once, and it was during a time when I was actually school in ministry. Not as a student, but as staff. And I got on a phone call with the founder, Pastor Mark Vega, anointed man of God and so much wisdom. And he told me, he said, you may not be a preacher, you may not be in front of the podium, but your gift, what you're doing right now, is your podium. So what you're creating, what you're filming, that's your podium. And
Cootie. I'm just kidding.
so it's just whether you're an artist, whether you're a kids ministry teacher, whether you're maybe a worship leader, or maybe you're just doing the lyrics, or maybe it's just an usher, that is your podium. And that kind of resonated with me a lot, because I'm like, man, I always would say, I'm not a preacher. How can how can this benefit God? When he said that, you're not, may not be a preacher, but using that, what you have as your podium, the podium, it changes a lot of things. Because I always think pastors that, they always got to give the best, So if you're not, you may not be a preacher, but the podium that you're in right now,
Yeah.
just give it the best.
Give it the best.
Don't just put 50%, give it the best. And it reminds me of the story of Baleel. Baleel. It's a little bit difficult to say, but in Exodus 39, you could say one of the first artists that was filled with the Spirit. I know we don't hear about that in church a lot, but I think it resonates with a lot of people who are artists, who are church leaders, but mainly for artists. He was called to create the temple, and
Wow.
For that, it resonates a lot, because he was, for me, I resonate a lot with that, because either I'm not a preacher, but he was called to create for God, for His glory. So what we're doing, let it be not for our glory, but for His glory. So whether it could be, you could do whatever you may want, whether it's even dancing. I mean,
Yeah.
let that be for the glory of God, and just see how He could use that.
You can be an architect for God. You can be an engineer for God. You can be a carpenter for God. Jesus, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that we put a limit on what we can do for God. God does not have a limit on the field. There can be as many players as possible. The field for God is, enormous. There is no competition either. We are all working together for one goal and for one team, which is Jesus. I just want to encourage that person. You know, there's so much that you can do. There's so much that you were given, and you don't have to be like the person to your right or to your left. You don't have to be to the person directly in front of you in the pulpit or behind you in the sound booth. There's a gift. Everybody here, for the most part, has social media. You can do so much on there as well.
And I guess a little bit to add on that, I have this saying, and usually when I do like workshops, it's the first point. No one knows anything. No one knows anything. Social media manager, even myself, I may think I know everything, but I really don't know anything at all.
Yeah.
But as a Christian and as a creator, I think mainly as a Christian, we believe in God, who is omnipresent,
Omnipotent.
yeah,
Omniscient.
omniscient, Alpha, the beginning and the end. So obviously, He knows. He's in the past, He's in the now, He's in the future. We don't know anything, but God knows. It's always funny when I see people on social media or creators, let's say for example, as a church, who try to be like Elevation, who try to be like Transformation Church or Bethel, which is funny enough because they don't even know where they're going. They just know, all right, this is what we have to do, and let's just try to do what we have now and do our best.
Yeah.
So leading with that, it's like no one knows anything, but what we do know is what we have gone through. For those that are saying, trying to compare themselves, I was like, I'd rather say don't compare yourself to someone else, compare yourself to yourself. And that's what I always say in the workshops and social media workshops as well. It's not just for social media, but it's a life thing too. Because social media is more than just social media. It's about life. It's community. That's what we have. Now it's our community. With VR coming in, a lot of people are considering that their community now. For those that are in the hospital, they may not be able to go have community outside how we are.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, but they can have community in virtual
The
reality.
metaverse is coming.
It is. And
NFTs. We might not be seeing dollars anymore.
We'll
Cryptocurrencies on the rise, and we know it's only getting more and more advanced with AI and all this that's going on. But social media is really a big platform. It is community for a lot of people. Is their way to express themselves. Is their way to receive. I've heard testimonies of people that in the pandemic, when everything shut down, they couldn't go anywhere. Being on social media, they saw a video that impacted their life, that made them reflect and examine and be like, man, I got to go back to church. A lot of prodigal sons returned to the house of the Father through social media, through a preaching, through a snippet, a TikTok, a worship song that somebody shared. And I think that we can definitely use that to our advantage. I think a lot of youth need to rise up and demonstrate to the world where their faith stands and who their faith is in. And we can do that and believe that God gave you a calling. Everybody has a calling. You aren't just made to breathe and suck up all the oxygen that surrounds you. You're made with a calling and a purpose, and God has a plan to you to prosper you and not to harm you. But man, any last words of encouragement, any last words that you can give to that person that maybe finds themselves lost, depressed, or oppressed? Maybe they're going through a difficult moment like you went through when you were 12 years old. What words of motivation can you give?
I would say this, and that it always sticks with me. Never, never, never give up on repenting. Always keep a repentance heart. It doesn't matter how many things you do in life. For me, all this busy work I do doesn't get me into heaven. It does not get me into heaven. No matter how many times I pray for someone or who I pray for, it won't get me into heaven. The only person that will get me into heaven is Jesus. But we hear in the Bible, it says, the only way to heaven is through Jesus. But repent.
Yeah.
Repent of your wicked ways. Repent and just come after God.
Yeah.
Come after God how you are. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do something. God already paid the price for everything, and we are given that grace and mercy freely. We don't have to do anything. It just acknowledge, hey God, and that's it. So whether you're going through anxiety, depression, angerness, hatred, whether you're watching stuff you're not supposed to be watching, anything, there's nothing too big for God. And I would say that
His love is bigger than your sin.
It is. It is. So yeah.
Man, well, thank you so much. Thank you for opening up your life, sharing a little bit about the things that you've been through, giving us the aspect of, ministry off of the pulpit, off from the stage, from the other side. We know that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and you guys are doing great things. You guys are doing great things at Way of Life Church. And man, it was an honor and a pleasure for you to be here in this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elohim Podcast, a podcast about real life issues from a biblical perspective. Thank you so much, man, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Elohim Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. You can find the link in the description below.